A Remarriage Guide. Chapter 1. A Remarriage Guide 1. Remarriage 1. Remarriage means you've been burnt once in the love game or your spouse died. Divorces which lead to what are unceremoniously called broken families are a fact of life. More people get divorced than ever before, about half, and many will remarry, often very quickly after the divorce, some spinning the wheel several times in search of true love. A lot of people are afraid of remarriage. They feel they look foolish, too old, too burnt out, too foolish to be trying for romance again. The insecurity is monumental, people worrying if they will fail again. There are many cases of people going for 4 or more marriages and not stopping until they find love or die trying. Don't be embarrassed. Be happy for yourself. When kids try to get to you, keep your mouth shut rather than spew venom back at them. Make friends with them. Scold them in private away from other kids. You can be romantic in front of them, just keep it lukewarm. Help your children adjust to their new life. You can still be friends with your ex and in-laws or ignore them if you choose, it doesn't matter. Don't trash your ex to your new spouse, just be polite about it. Remarriages could be just as traumatic as first marriages. There's no law etched in stone that says you learned anything from the first marriage to help make you a better lover this time around. A remarriage may be the fastest way out of poverty for a woman without any marketable skills, but there are stresses and pressures on second marriages not apparent with first marriage, like the baggage of kids and ex-spouses, plus the expectations of you and everyone else to see if you're capable of making a go of it or if it's something in you that causes failure in marriages. If you're not good at relationships, spinning the wheel again won't necessarily make it right. The two most important factors to making a marriage work are commitment and withhold judgment when your spouse makes you mad. Unrealistic expectations often come down to reality after a few months, and then you see the real people behind the masks and can determine whether you will make it or not right around then. People are brainwashed into wanting a perfect traditional family and subconsciously expecting the new spouse to be everything the old spouse wasn't, but it's not true. Step families aren't like traditional families because you can't impose your free will on the new kids that are not yours biologically, and that distance will always be there. Love takes time for new spouses and new kids. Just because you've been through it once doesn't necessarily make you entitled to it the second time around. Don't look to remarriage as a form of rescue. Don't do it unless you feel true love there. The usual trend is that people are cynical about love immediately after a divorce, but some go on the rebound right away looking for a partner, while others generally start looking again after about a year or two. Children shouldn't come first. It should be you two as a couple who love each other enough such that the children feel it and it rubs off to create a relatively happy family. Give the kids time to grieve for the loss of the old family. Don't expect them to warm up to your new flame right away. Don't just tell them once. Keep repeating what's going on. Tell them where they will live, go to school, with whom, etc. Listen to them. Be nice to your stepchildren. Many remarried people have problems with the former spouse who doesn't quite want to let go, maybe jealous of the new spouse and try to sabotage it on some level. Don't do anything rash after your first marriage, like get a tubal ligation or a vasectomy, because you never know what will happen in your future. You will each be outsiders to your lover's kids, parents, etc., so proceed lightly, not coming on too strong. Try to be cordial with the other spouse if you have to meet them to discuss the children's issues. Holidays can be a hassle. Try to balance out time for the kids between the custodial and non-custodial parents. Religion can also be a source of problems if you're from two different faiths. It's alright to bring up a child with two distinct religions. People do it all the time, giving each child an experience of both worlds. If the children are over the age of 14, beware of them getting sexually attracted to the step-parent and vice versa. Be wary of step-siblings experimenting with each other sexually. Try to build a new identity as a step-family distinct from the old original family, but don't necessarily erase the past, and don't be too comfortable with the stepchildren right off. Try to be a good friend rather than a controlling parent. The children's biological parents, both the one with you and the one of your new spouse may get resentful if you try to impose too much control or conversely get too close to them. They might get jealous, so keep your relations with your stepkids at a pleasant, temperate level. Your spouse might not have custody of his kids, in which case you will probably be weekend and summer vacation parents, the kids coming over here and there. In such cases, give the child a separate room or separate drawer to keep things. Don't try for special things all the time. Try for a relaxed, normal environment. Invite him to bring a friend over sometimes. Let him get to know you. Don't impose too many rules. Try to have enough love for both families, or all four, including former spouses, new lovers who will be connected to your kids somehow. The laws about second families / step families / blended families, take your pick of terminology, is still quite muddled. There are no clear guidelines as to who's responsible for what in a parental role, child custody and visitation, and for the financial aspects of it. Try to simplify it by having the same surname for everybody in your new family. You might have to go to court to do it. The 1974 Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act gives the non-custodial parent who's not living with the child certain rights in getting access to his or her school records. Legal and financial laws are generally quite complicated regarding remarriages, all the way from credit card debt to student aid forms to how to divide, share and bequeath your money, so be ready, brush up on your knowledge of such laws just in case. Family law legal books are at number 346 at the library. Legally, the laws differ for every state regarding responsibility for stepchildren. The biological parents have more responsibilities and rights than step-parents. If the biological spouse is near destitute, states often hold the step-parent financially accountable to the stepchildren. In any case, you shouldn't help out unless you can afford it, and only help with necessary things like education and medical, not frivolous things like new cars or fashionable clothing. The longer you live with the stepchildren, the more you will want to help them and the more you will be legally bound to. When the children fill out student aid forms, they often have to include the step-parent's income as part of the formula. Step-parents have no legal rights to authorize medical treatment for stepchildren, even if they've been taking care of them for a long time. If you want to authorize the step-parent to authorize medical attention to a stepchild, get a letter notarized by a notary public where the biological parent, give the step-parent that right. Step-parents can adopt their stepchildren relatively easily if the other biological parent is dead, but if he's alive, you have to get him to surrender all his parental rights before you can adopt. Step-parents often develop bonds with their stepchildren, so after they divorce, they might want custody or visitation rights with their stepchildren. Some areas have laws for this, some don't. Talk to a family lawyer about it. You want stability, meaning living within your means, not living lavishly and going into debt. You both don't know everything about the other, so you will be careful not to overspend at first. Keep it that way. Buy a smaller, cheaper house if it will mean a simpler lifestyle than trying to maintain a bigger one in the suburbs. Even though a few people are wealthy, most people aren't, and if it's a remarriage for both, chances are both have been beat up by previous divorces and current support payments, so be ready for a scarcity of money. Chances are you won't have the amount of money you really want to live a nice, comfortable lifestyle. Get another part-time job if you have to. Spend as little as you can, save as much as you can. This may be your biggest problem. You might have to get a better job or move into a little house in the lower class part of town. You might have to sell your big toys like your boat, motorbike, golf clubs, country club membership, etc. You will probably have a crisis like a major car repair bill that could cause major problems, so if you're not wealthy, keep a tight rein on your money. If you've got kids and get a divorce, some people say wait until they're 18 before you tie the knot again. Later remarriages when the kids are all grown up are easier than remarriages while you're still responsible for young kids. Purge your house of all mementos of your ex-flame. You may have to be a step-grandparent to kids you barely know, the kids of your spouse's kids. Educate yourself. Books about remarriages are at hashtag 306.84 or HQ536 at the library. Books about money and marriage are at hashtag 332.024 and HG179. Books about second or third weddings are at hashtag 395.22 or HQ745 at the library. Remarriage 2. Love is the reason you keep getting married, but the reality is that second and subsequent marriages are considerably more complicated than first-time marriages because you have baggage in the form of guilt for having failed the first time around, kids, an ex-spouse, possible bills and obligations left over from your past life with your former family, so be ready for all this nitpicky stuff. Some people say second marriages are better because you're presumably more mature, have been around once and know what you want, but despite all this lovey-dovey talk, the bottom line is always money unless you have more than you need. You're presumably more practical and not tied into all this passionate honeymoon stuff where you party away the time looking for the perfect feeling while the bills mount up, then reality hits. Oftentimes, both partners have careers and money of their own, but one may be unequally wealthy next to the other, so do up a prenuptial agreement before the marriage. Keep your major assets separate, agree on the contribution each makes to running the household, then as you fall in love more, do things together to solidify the trust. Wait a few years before you get a joint account or sign the house into a joint ownership. Wait until you trust each other in a real way before you share the money part of it. You can always modify or nullify the prenuptial agreement later. Fairness counts, but not for everything. If you're stupid, you will fall in love, get married, get divorced 6 months later, and she's entitled to half of what you own. Protect yourself. Trust takes time. Anyone can fake it for a while to try to get money. Lots of young women marry wealthy older guys for long enough to have a kid, then clean him out in divorce court. You have to talk about this stuff, but at the same time you have to be delicate with your new spouse about probing her past history. Remarriages generally have a divorce rate higher than first-time marriages because presumably the people are more cynical and open to bail if it doesn't work out because they've been through it before already. There are several major issues to deal with remarriages. Baggage from previous marriages for both spouses. They say a divorce is like a death grief-wise. It takes the normal person several years to work through the grief and other unresolved feelings of anger and disappointment. Second marriage partners should talk about their first marriages to each other. This will help them both learn from it and put it at a healthy distance in the past. After a divorce, the individual should take some time to learn to stand alone before jumping into another marriage right away. Try to achieve a sense of independence with successful single living first. The attitudes of your family to your divorce and your new spouse will go a long way in determining the success or failure of a second marriage. It's better to have allies than critics. Their attitudes will affect you, but if you really love her and they're still critical, go with love over loyalty to the family. Besides, a good family will not tell you how to live your life. The new stepchildren and relations with custodial and non-custodial children. The problems of forming a new family are complex and challenging. Learn something about it beforehand. Try to blend into the new family smoothly. Compromises and changes require time and patience. Past patterns of living in a relationship. Those who have not learned from the mistakes of the past are condemned to repeat them. If you were a dud in the first marriage, there's no reason why you will not be a dud in subsequent marriages unless you make a conscious effort to learn and change. Identify and dealing with your negative behaviors. What did you learn about yourself from your divorce? Respect your one new lover's past. He or she has baggage as you have, including hurts and areas of sensitivity. Caring for each other does not mean ignoring these areas and expecting them to disappear, but gently learning about each other's pasts. This entails a willingness to listen to your lover talk about the past sometimes. Have realistic expectations. Don't expect perfection. Expect failures as you continue to feel your way through life, love, and marriage. We will always love imperfectly. This is life as it happens. Just because you are now a few years older does not necessarily mean you are wiser. Give your new spouse some space and make allowance for your former spouse being in your life because of finances, children, and in-laws. Whether custodial or not, the children of a former marriage play a big part in a new marriage. Children generally do as well as their parents do in a divorce. The more parents strive to pick up the pieces and live a good life after divorce, the more likely the children will. The major thing to do is to avoid criticism of your ex-spouse in the presence of the children. With a divorce then remarriage, typically, there will be a loss of a community of friends and new friends, which can sometimes be difficult. You need good friends for support in a new marriage. Make time for play. Don't be a workaholic. It kills relationships. Make time to laugh and play together. Remarriage 3. When a divorced man marries a divorced woman, there are 4 minds in the bed. Talmud. Ask yourself if you can handle the second marriage and still be a good father to your first family. Second marriage is all about hope over experience. Most people who get divorced or widowed want to marry again. Second marriages can be happier and more mutually satisfying, presumably because you've learned from your mistakes, but, of course, that's not necessarily true, because once you fall in love again, there you go acting like a dumb skookid all over again. People fear second marriages after a divorce because they think they're too old to find love again or will fail at love again. They don't want the hassles of sharing their assets, stepchildren, they're still stuck on their past relationship and simply don't want the legal hassles that go with marriage, which is why a lot of people will live with a new lover but won't remarry legally. If you were a guy who got cleaned out in divorce court, how would you feel? The truth is that in today's world, most people get married young and don't know themselves, and when they finally figure it out, they realize they need another spouse in order to find happiness. First marriages rarely work anymore. Your best bet after a divorce is to play it cool for a while before you jump into another marriage right away. Watch out for the rebound, meaning don't automatically go for anyone to fill the void, because, more than likely, the first one you come across is not Mr. or Ms. Right, and you will end up repeating the cycle all over again. Take some time out to cool off and relax, then go looking for a new love muffin with a more critical eye than the first time around. Take solace in the fact that there are plenty of other second-timers around like yourself looking for love, and quite often, they end up with another second-timer like you. Introduce your children to her and see if she likes them and they her. The 2 most basic rules are to get off the self-pitying kick as soon as you can to get on with your life, and secondly, when you find someone, there will be a whole new mishmash of people to deal with, there and your relatives, friends, and kids. Even though our society is more liberal now than it once was, there's still a stigma attached to marrying a divorced person, so get ready for some negative feedback. Be especially careful with grandparents and in-laws. The wedding should be nice but not necessarily grand like the first one. Make it nice, but it doesn't have to be as lavish as the first. Keep it low-key. You probably won't be able to afford a big one anyway now that daddy won't help you since you screwed up the first one and you're still recovering from the costs of the divorce anyway. If you have kids, be gracious and invite the in-laws. They can decide whether to come or not. Don't automatically expect that the rules of conduct with your first spouse will translate to your new spouse. He or she is a different entity unto herself, and you must respect that and grow with her from the beginning, although you can still use all your old corny romantic stuff from your first wife on her. People generally try harder the second time around, so the succeeding divorce rate is consequently considerably lower than that of first marriages. Many second-time couples have financial problems because of the monetary drain associated with the termination of the first marriage, but they seem to be able to deal with it better because they're wiser and more mature. Step-parenting can be a big problem. Read about it in the other section. Get over your former spouse. Don't talk about her much to your new spouse. Take care of the unfinished business of the first marriage as quickly as possible and try not to concern your new spouse with it. Don't be ambivalent about ending your first marriage. Do it and get it over with. Strive for constructive changes. Build a new identity for the second marriage starting from square one. Don't compare it to the first. Don't try to live your second marriage within the context of the first marriage. Take a strong stand for it. Beware of falling into a cycle trap and having the first marriage repeat itself in the second. Your first spouse may not let go, motivated by either a desire to get back together or revenge. Men and women alike can escalate up to violence. Don't flaunt your new spouse and your new, happy life in front of your expo. If your new spouse gets along with your kids well and you all seem like a happy family together, don't rub it in the nose of your former spouse. Do your business with your kids, then drop them off at the ex's house. Remember the case in Redondo Beach where the jilted wife got even with her ex-husband and his new, young wife by killing them both. If the former first spouse wants to be a friend for the sake of the kids, that's fine, but watch out for ulterior motives. Blended families pose all kinds of unique problems. You may each be bringing kids into the equation, as in the Brady Bunch of TV fame. You may become an instant parent to several kids. Blended families are families where one or both partners bring children in from a previous situation. The kids can either like the new parent or hate him, there's usually no middle ground. If the kid hates you, it could get tough. He sees you as a threat to the exclusive relationship he once had with his mother and he's jealous. Talk, friendship, and doing things together are the only generic pieces of advice I can give. You might have to grin and bear it and wait till the brat leaves at 18, or he might successfully destroy the relationship. Watch out. With step-parents, don't be phony, play it cool. Bribing kids with gifts always works, at least for a while. A dirty little secret for a parent with teenage girls is that the stepfather may try to have his way with them. It has happened many times before, and the wife turns a blind eye because she doesn't want to lose him. Second wives sometimes get a bad rap from the relatives and friends of the man who see her as an intruder and a home wrecker. Be ready for it. Give yourself time after a divorce before you remarry. Respect your new spouse's past. Make allowance for the ex-spouse, your spouse's friends, and the kids. Don't get surgically fixed too soon lest you divorce, remarry, and want your own kids. Don't expect any more than you're willing to give. Don't feel guilty about the concept of second marriage as many people do. Be ready for the same jitters as with a first marriage. Try to be a good step-parent. Try to befriend the other parents, your husband's ex and her new spouse. Build a new identity as a family. Find the right size home for your new family. Be courteous to your spouse's non-custodial stepchildren who come to visit. Try to keep the kids in the same school during the divorce and remarriage process. Be fair between your kids and stepkids, especially during the holidays. If it's an interracial step-family, try to accept and respect the differences. Try to straighten out the confusing surname bit. If you want your own biological baby as a couple, don't feel guilty about it. Consider the money, a prenuptial agreement and a revised will. Books about second marriages are at #306.84 or HQ536 at the library. Chapter 2. A Remarriage Guide to Second Wedding Info. When couples come to me for a second marriage, they have always spent most of their time and energy on that talking time and are a lot less concerned about the big day than they were the first time. They know that companionship in the kitchen around supper time is vastly more important than the color of the bridesmaids' dresses. Robert Fulghum, "It was on fire when I lay down on it." Because of the explosion of second marriages in society, a protocol has evolved that's basically still like first weddings but freer and a little less structured. The wedding is basically the same, a little less formal with some subtle differences. You can tailor the wedding to suit your desires, like the traditional white wedding dress, the father walking the daughter down the aisle, bringing kids into the wedding, inviting ex-spouses and in-laws, etc. If you're already established, don't start a gift registry. Keep the gift giving quiet and optional. The wedding could be exhaustive or simple. It's up to you. You can follow traditional protocol and make up your own rules since it's not your first marriage. There are no laws for the wedding. It doesn't have to be big like a second wedding. Do what you want. Have a party, Take it easy, have fun. The step family is the norm these days, so it's no big deal. Make the wedding like an informal party among friends. Be relaxed, there should be no pressure on you. Design it your own way, write your own vows. At this stage in the game, you're entitled to make up your own rules and forget about protocol. The truth is, it's not much different from a first wedding, except that it will probably be smaller and the bride won't wear white, since white is symbolic of purity/virginity. You don't even have to wear a wedding dress. Any nice dress will do. For the honeymoon, don't go to the same place you went for your first wedding. If you have kids, take them along as a family trip, especially if there are stepchildren from both sides. If you don't want that, send them to a fun place for a week like grandpa's, or give the babysitter enough money to take them to the amusement park and buy them pizza a few times. Thank the children for being good. Write them a thank you note. You can have pre-wedding parties. Let them bring gifts unless you're strongly against it. You can live together before the wedding, it's just a formality anyway. Decide on what names you will use, introduce both sets of kids and introduce them into the wedding. Parents may have passed on. They might be widows or widowers. Don't put much pressure on them to host or pay. Do it all yourself. Sure, they're invited to the wedding and all that, but don't give them the hassle of paying your way again the second time around. The second time around, you don't have to be so stereotypical about it. You don't have to buy her a diamond. Make it more personable, like her birthstone or something else. Have your divorce decrees and death certificates ready for the paperwork. This time around, the woman might want to change her last name to his or a hybrid of the two, she might not. It's up to her. If it's after a divorce, you won't have much money, so don't waste it on frivolous things like expensive wedding rings. On the other hand, some older people have money now, so they want a big deal, unlike when they were younger and struggling in life. Engagements are basically the same. They can be both private and public, but you will have to tell your kids about it. Some couples take all their children to a restaurant and tell them they're getting married. Some people get more religious as they age, some less. You still have the same old issues. Either one is more adamant about having a religious wedding. If you're from two different faiths, one of you wants it in their church, or presumably because you've sinned by divorcing, it's no big deal this time around. Some faiths might not marry a divorced person. Check with your religious leader. They say no engagement announcement in the newspaper the second time around, just the wedding announcement. Instead of the groom's parents entertaining the fiancé's parents with a supper/party, you can do it by taking them all out to a restaurant. Instead of a generic shower, have a brunch somewhere or something real fun. Long weekends are good times for second weddings because they will give your older guests some time to recover. Wedding invitations don't have to be so formal. Run off the itinerary on your computer if you want as your wedding invitation. Weddings are generally for young people, so you might find some people, like at work, thumbing their noses at you. Second weddings can be as elaborate or as simple as you want them. Conventional wisdom says they're simpler because you presumably failed the first time. Now the hype is all over because you had your chance, but this is not necessarily etched in stone. Do what you want. It's a free world. If it's a first wedding for one, a second or third wedding for the other, the virgin will probably want an elaborate wedding, the other one a simple one, so talk it out and compromise somehow. For first weddings, men are usually left out of the planning process, but many want to plan part of their second wedding to be more real as opposed to the typical traditional, show-off wedding. Invite exes, especially if you have kids. It's up to them whether they want to come or not. A lot of men don't want any sign of the new wife's ex-husband there, including his friends and relatives. It's a territorial thing. Widows and widowers sometimes feel guilty for marrying again. You have a right to be happy, and your loved partner would have wanted it this way. Wait a year or two after the funeral before you marry again. They say a second-time bride should wear any color but white on her wedding day. If the groom's daughter is too old, don't make her the flower girl or a bridesmaid. Do the appropriate things even if they violate custom. Make your children feel part of the ceremony by getting them to help out. Some second-time brides don't want their father to give them away again, so they do it alone or with somebody else like a friend. The less protocol the better. If you're a widow, you don't have to invite your ex-in-laws unless you have kids, and even then, it might be uncomfortable. Because the couple is presumably established, consider more fun, luxury gifts rather than functional gifts like new couples get to start a household. Don't forget the romance. Chuck the tradition in favor of realism. Have babysitting arrangements for the kids the night of the wedding and for the honeymoon. Don't do the honeymoon in the same place you had your first wedding. All in all, second weddings are less formal, less intense, more sociable, and cost less than first weddings because the pressure is off. A simple reception in the yard with cocktails works but would be considered crass for a first wedding. Books about second weddings are at #395.22 or BJ2051 and HQ745 at the library. Brideagain.com. Late life marriages, first marriage, or more. Jimmy Stewart, actor in It's a Wonderful Life, got married for the first time at the age of 41. It was a marriage that lasted a lifetime. There was a story in the news about an 85-year-old woman getting married for the first time. For most people, marriage after 50 is not a first marriage. I read bits about people who were married 7, 5, and 4 times. 4 marriages is still a lot of marriages. The only real rules are that age doesn't change the process of falling in love. If you have lots of money, guard it legally with a prenuptial agreement or some other method in case the marriage fails. If you're 80 and a 25-year-old wants to marry you, it ain't because you're a handsome, dashing hunk. Live in the real world. At a certain point, your money is more attractive than your looks or personality. The statistics show that the number of times a person marries is a good indicator of the success of the marriage. The more times somebody marries, the greater the likelihood that the next marriage will fail. If you can't make it work with 1, 2, or 3 spouses, there's a good chance it won't work on the 4th try or the 5th, etc. When a parent marries again and he's got money, the kids start worrying about their inheritance since the spouse has first dibs on the money by law unless there's a will or other legal documents. The money side of remarriage. Because you both may have assets, you may consider some kind of separate property/prenuptial agreement. Keep separate accounts and major assets separate at least for a few years until you're sure it's gonna last. You should each balance out the income situation in the home, i.e. both participate. Because it's the second time around for at least one of you, in all likelihood, you will have money problems due to the divorce, so don't take it lightly. Educate yourself about it. Make decisions together. Because you're both presumably older and wiser, you will probably balance out the responsibilities more so than a traditional marriage. If the woman works, she should keep her job and keep that part of her life despite the marriage. Above all, try to love each other more than you did during the first marriage. If a man was cleaned out during divorce court, he may be depressed, bitter and suspicious of the woman he meets in search of a new love, so you have to handle him with kid gloves and show him that you've got only good intentions on your mind. You will have to help him in his woes and be there in case he needs help with his problems. It takes a special woman to be with a recently divorced guy who lost his shirt in court. Litigation could drag on for months and even years while you two develop your relationship. You want trust for your next marriage, and money is a big part. Come clean with your partner about it. Money is emotion. It can be good, but it could also destroy marriages, so get your money issues out in the open and try to stick with the program. The divorce rate for remarried couples is higher than it is for first-timers. When you remarry, chances are the both of you have your own jobs, your own house, and possibly dependent children or child support children, alimony, etc. Your lives are considerably more complicated than first-time marrieds. You're generally a little older, presumably with careers and/or money and/or debt. One is probably more wealthy than the other. If it's a blended family with stepchildren, the addition of a new biological child could create more financial burdens. There will probably be some kind of financial tie to your past spouse and your kids from previous marriages. You will have to strike a balance between responsibilities to previous families and your current one. You will probably be a little cautious, so consider a prenuptial agreement. Separate versus or in addition to a joint savings accounts. Keep the house in your name versus joint ownership or transferring it into your spouse's name for whatever reason. You may have children from a previous marriage, stepchildren from this marriage plus new biological children in this family. Who pays for clothes, cars, college, medical illness, children's wedding, school trips, uniforms, band instruments, gym fees, etc. For the stepchildren, technically not your own but living with you as a family. Prenuptial agreements are fine for second weddings. If it's the second time for both of you and you each have some assets, each can make up an agreement as to what happens in the event of a divorce. Remember that prenuptial agreements can be contested, so their value might be overstated, particularly if the marriage lasts more than 5 years and you have a child or two. If you don't want to ask her to sign a prenuptial agreement because you feel embarrassed by it but want to protect your money, get as much as you can in liquid form and put it in an offshore account. It's a very tough call unless you have infinitely deep pockets. You want to be fair, but you're entitled to a life too. There are legal issues too. In some states, if you live with stepchildren, you have some legal responsibility for them. And then there's the question of time commitment. How much time do you spend with all these children, go on vacations with them, buy them things, etc. There are all kinds of little issues like whose TV will you use, what will you do with the spare one, whose bed will you use, and so on down the line. Some men don't particularly like the girl's frivolous home decor, so strike a middle ground when furnishing your new digs. You got remarried in the first place because you love each other, but finances play a big deal, particularly because each of you already has a financial history, either savings or debt. Presumably you're older and wiser now, so you should come together as a team to figure out maybe how much each contributes to a joint checking account for household expenses while keeping separate accounts for yourselves. Keep 3 lists, yours, mine and ours. Get a book on budgeting or some budgeting software and use it. You should save together for retirement, share the financial day-to-day running of the house, and make a fair will that covers everybody relevant from both families, your past and present ones. The house is a big deal. If one sells their house and moves into the other, the question becomes how much should they contribute, or should you both sell and go out together to find a house each of you likes, then split the cost down the middle. Talk about whether the wealthier spouse will own the title solely or will each contribute and own it jointly. In the house itself, you should each stake out equitable personal space like the rec room for her, the basement den for him. Most fights in the money realm start from frivolous spending, things like clothes, candy, coffee, golf clubs, fancy tools, etc. Unless you earn the money yourself and contribute your share to the household, don't spend hard-earned cash on frivolous things. Focus on living a frugal, financially aware lifestyle. When you get remarried, you may be so busy juggling the stepchildren and former relatives that money considerations might get lost until there's significant debt, then panic and the debt could spiral. So plan your financial life out together, live thriftily, be fair to all your kids, pay all your bills and save whatever's left for the future. Legal and financial laws are generally quite complicated regarding remarriages, all the way from credit card debt to student aid forms to how to divide, share and bequeath your money, so be ready, brush up on your knowledge of such laws just in case. Family law legal books are at number 346 at the library. You want stability, meaning living within your means, not living lavishly and going into debt. You both don't know everything about the other, so you will be careful not to overspend at first. Keep it that way. Buy a smaller, cheaper house if it will mean a simpler lifestyle than trying to maintain a bigger one in the suburbs. Get your money styles in sync with each other. Trust each other, talk about money, be fair and equitable. Don't stash cash away such that your spouse might find it and feel burned. If you want to hide some money, do it well in a secret bank account. Get your statements sent to your work or a friend's house. Be as open as you can about your money. If you want to avoid problems, talk about controversial things like why should he pay for your child's summer camp, or why should you contribute to a joint checking account that he's writing alimony checks on. You don't have to agree on everything, but talk and understanding is enough to clear the air. Agree to disagree. Compromise and give each other some frivolous space. Let him buy his beer and let her buy her romance novels. Even though a few people are wealthy, most people aren't, and if it's a remarriage for both, chances are both have been beat up by previous divorces and current support payments, so be ready for a scarcity of money. Spend as little as you can, save as much as you can. This may be your biggest problem. You might have to get a second job or move into a little house in the lower class part of town. You will probably have a crisis like a major car repair bill that could cause major problems, so if you're not wealthy, keep a tight rein on your money. If you want your own biological child, expect expenses of at least $6,000 a year. Increase your insurance if you're bringing new stepchildren into the family. Increase the number of dependents on your IRS tax forms. All in all, the best time to get remarried is when your kids are grown up and gone, so you will have that much less baggage to deal with. Not that you love them any less, but that you're entitled to your own freedom and enjoyment of life. When you do your estate planning, you have to deal with the issue of whether the stepchildren get anything or not. As you get older, you will have to deal with the problem of failing health as you write your will and decide how to divide your estate among both your biological and stepchildren. Resist the urge to leave everything to your wife because she might give it all to her biological kids and shut yours out. If you're fair with all of them, tell them in advance so they will know the score before it happens. Gifts while you're alive is the best way to get rid of your assets and avoid the tax man at the same time. The blended family needs respect to survive. You may not agree with your spouse and stepchildren on everything, but try to respect them. Keep it simple. Follow the rules of money management just like everybody else does. Educate yourself. Books about money and marriage are at #332.024 and HG179 at the library. A will after a second marriage. After a second marriage, you more than likely have an ex-spouse, new spouse, kids from the first marriage, stepkids and new biological kids, so your best bet is to sit down, think it through and write it out. Call an attorney to review the will and sign it. Put the will in a safe place like the attorney's office or in a bank's safe deposit box. Tell one family member where the will is located. If you have a prenuptial agreement, your will should be consistent with it. Update the will every 5 years or as conditions change. If there are minor children involved, make a provision for a guardian. Spell out provisions for the children of the former marriage clearly. Make special provisions like a trust for special needs children. Put in a provision for personal prized possessions like antiques, books, jewelry, etc. Make insurance policies beneficiaries the same as in the will. Make the survivor's benefits on bank accounts agree with the will. Consider probate and taxation costs to minimize these costs to the survivor at the time of death. Biological child. The question of whether to have a child in a remarriage where at least one of the partners is already a parent has no easy answer. I personally think it's a good thing because it gives you something real as a couple to center the relationship around in the midst of stepkids and ex-spouses. In any event, the matter is likely to come up. Men in second marriages often have many reasons for not wanting a new baby, often due to money worries. This has nothing to do with their love for the second wife, they're just trying to be cautious with child support payments to their other kids, alimony, etc. Quite often, a second marriage for a husband is a first marriage for the girl, the old middle-aged man-young wife phenomena. She wants kids and a family. Women are raised to think it's their duty in life to have children, so unless you plan to marry an older chick, Expect to have more kids than those in your first family, otherwise she'll give you grief and divorce you. And don't get any vasectomies. There are no guarantees with vasectomy reversals. If you're getting impotent, freeze some of your sperm just in case. Late marriage websites. Articles.moneysentral.ms/retirement/will/plaineouri-state/late-in-life-mar-ih-swarriers.aspx. blogs.nerve.com, study marry late for lasting love. ehow.com, how to prepare for a late-in-life marriage. elca.org/r-faith-in-action/life-transition/family-relation/late-life-marriage.aspx. elder-law.com/2010/issue1709.html. en.wikipedia.org/wiki/late_marriage. ezenarticles.com, late life marriages. hubpages.com/hub/late-marriage. investopedia.com/articles/pf/09/what-to-consider-before-marrying.asp. lifemarriageandkids.com. wiki.answers.com/q/can_late_marriage_cause_problems. Remarriage websites. abigails.org/divorce/remarriage.htm, after spouse abuse and remarriage. badslaychurch.org/do/wetguide.html, guidelines for remarriage after divorce. brastrapsupporter.com/resources1/second-marriages. brideagain.com. caddivorce.com/article-when-can-remarry.htm. ccsbm.org/what's-new/pre-marriage.html, pre-marriage seminar for second marriages. childsupport.com/link/second-marriages.asp. christianitytoday.com, second marriage. cornerstone1.org/divorce2.htm, divorce and remarriage. desiringgod.org/library/topics/divorce_remarriage, against remarriage after divorce. divorce.city-lawyer.info/remarriage.html. divorce.him-city.com/remarriage.htm. divorcebalance.com. divorcehope.com/can Christians remarry after divorce. divorceinfo.com/remarriage.htm. divorcepeers.com/post-divorce-relationships. embracingmarriage.org. equalityinmarriage.org/nrmr.html. family.org. family2000.org.uk/second_weddings.htm. familymedallion.com. familyministries.gc.adventist.org. gettingremarried.com. gods-kingdom.org/divorce.htm, divorce and remarriage is not adultery. goldenfaithbiblechurch.org/divorce_remarriage. godotahebbible.com/html/divorce-remarriage.html. gotquestions.org/divorce-remarriage.html, what does the Bible say about divorce and remarriage? howtoremarry.com. edotake2.com/christian_remarriage.html. instepministries.com, remarriage help. marriage devo rc-remarriage.com. marriage-again/thoughts_married_again.php. marriagestudies.com/remarriage.html. relationships.com.au/advice/second_chance.asp. remarriage.blogspot.com. remarriage.com. remarriage.org. remarriagematrimony.com. secondmarriage.meetup.com. secondwivesclub.com. wholefamily.com.